Okay. All right. Wait, how would like a Joe Rogan start off this podcast? What do they
Oh,
say?
fuck. I don't know. I've never listened to 1 second of the Joe Rogan experience. I don't know.
I'm trying
Hey,
to be like,
bro, what's up?
yeah,
Pass the.
gather round, bros. It's time. It's the Perhaps It's You podcast where we watch Robert Stack episodes of Unsolved Mysteries and we tell you what happened because you don't remember, but then we comment on it.
You're sounding a little more like Jim Bro, which is like you need a little bit of that, but it needs to be a little like you've smoked a little more than where you're at.
I don't know how to do. I only know how to do whatever I just did as a male voice. I don't know how.
In the recipe of Joe Rogan, I think we need a little more of that.
A little pot sprinkling. I don't know if I can bring that to my vocal performance, honestly. By the way, my name is Liz.
My name is Samantha.
We've been doing this podcast for like 5 years.
Wow, it's been a journey.
It's been just it's a chronicle of our friendship, really.
It's true.
People can listen from the beginning where we didn't know each other that well, and
no, we did not. It's kind of amazing that we started doing this,
and now here I am, infiltrated every part of your life. How do you feel about that, Samantha?
I feel fine with it.
You're like,
I don't know if I'd still be doing this if I had a problem with it.
You're like, wait, every part of my life? Oh shit. Liz,
stop. Around
suspiciously. Yeah. You don't know that I have that secret entrance in your basement.
That's fine. It's fine. If you want to crawl through our disgusting basement,
I sneak in and then I overwater your plants and then I leave.
Oh no, my enemy! I didn't know you were my enemy.
Well, I don't mean to overwater them. I mean to just water them, but I'm telling you this so that when any plant dies, you're like, oh, it was Liz.
I can just blame it on you.
Yeah,
actually, that's great.
You could just blame me. It's like if only Liz didn't sneak in here and overwater these things, this wouldn't have happened.
That's honestly great. I will do that now.
Okay, I wanted to start off the podcast with a couple updates. I want to thank listener Amelia, who put together our requested genderqueer protection spell. She is a witch, but then she consulted with other witches about the best way to perform the spell. And so then I think maybe it was on Friday, we all lit a candle at the same time. Oh, that was Wednesday. I have fucking no concept of time. Okay. So on Wednesday, we lit a candle at the same time, and then we thought about the people that we wanted to protect to contribute our energy to the spell. I pretty much just sent my energy out to everyone who's not an asshole.
Same.
I was like, if you're not an asshole, I hope this spell protects you.
Yeah, same.
And if you are an asshole, honestly, fall in a well. Don't care. So hopefully that spell finds you well. Thank you so much, Amelia. I already heard from listener Alice who requested the spell, and it meant a lot to them. So,
oh, that's great. Yeah, I really appreciate listener Amelia and Amelia's witch colleagues.
Yeah, the like witch phone tree that went out. How do we make this happen? Love it so much. Honestly, it's very cool to me that we could be like, I think this podcast needs a spell, and people are like, right on it.
Yeah,
done.
It's amazing.
That's pretty cool. Okay, also, Samantha hasn't really seen this yet, but we got a very cool package the other day from listener Laramie, who has sent us some things before, but they do a like Etsy shop of felted cryptids. I mean, obviously, barefoot cryptid on Etsy. And so we were sent 2 Mothmen.
I saw photos of the booty.
Yeah, the most important part. Apparently, that's what we've inspired, that the Mothman have big butts. So you might think that this podcast is too small to have a cultural impact, but the evidence is there. Plain as day. We also got, I did want clarification if the sea monster or lake monster we got is Nessie or Ogopogo.
Oh, okay.
So I can address it appropriately, and there was some other cool stuff in the package. So thank you so much. That's super sweet. I just love the like little mysterious gifts that we get in the mail to prove that people actually listen to this podcast and not just like bots somewhere. So
I
that's
feel
great.
like I need proof sometimes, so I do really appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely. Otherwise, it's like, well, it's probably just my mom.
Yeah.
If people were waiting on my mom's iced coffee recipe, which hilariously someone did inquire about, my mom posted it in our Facebook group.
Oh, I missed it.
So find where someone's asking about the iced coffee recipe, and then you'll find my mom's response. It's very easy. It involves like Folgers crystals. So
Oh, okay.
get
I'm
on
really
it.
looking up right now.
Yeah. It's like sugar water with some coffee flavor added.
Sounds great. Sounds great.
It's honestly super delicious. It tastes like you're drinking melted coffee ice cream,
Yum.
which I think is what we all need in our lives.
Yeah, indulge yourself. We talked about this last time.
Maybe I'll just start buying coffee ice cream, melting it, putting it over ice.
Do you think that has caffeine in it? I think
Yeah,
this is dangerous for
probably.
you.
Probably, but you know
Maybe you
what?
can get decaf.
I feel like that's even caffeinated, probably too caffeinated.
Decaf has a tiny bit of caffeine in it. Some people don't know this.
Look, I
had to tell people that all the time when I worked at a coffee shop.
I have a horrible curse. I don't think it's a level that would affect like most people, but
No. But if you're really sensitive, you gotta be
my body
careful.
hates me, so whatever. That might be all of the updates I had. If you want us to like give you a shout out on the show, be sure to leave us a 5-star review and say something funny, and then we'll, you know, we'll talk about you. Absolutely. And we only accept 5-star reviews. That probably goes without saying because this podcast is so good. You would like never even consider giving us 4. That would never even cross your little mind. But just to be clear, only 5-star reviews are acceptable.
Only.
Mm-hmm. So we are in kind of the middle of season 7 right now, believe it or not. I think we made it to episode 12?
This is 12, I think. One before 13. I'm excited for 13. I don't know if we want to give any spoilers, but looks like it's gonna be a good one.
Oh, yeah. So tune in for that. Samantha starts us off this week.
I just took a sip of my polar. I've been drinking this summer polar flavor.
Oh wait, which one?
I'm drinking the pink summer iced tea.
Oh, I haven't found that one yet. Damn you.
Oh, I could have got you one. Maybe I'll see if there's more. I found them at my CVS when I was there to pick up a prescription. I came around the corner and there they were. I gasped out loud. Sadly, they only had 4. I think there's 5. I think there's an apple one that people say is really good, and they didn't have it.
Oh damn!
But the pink summer iced tea is good. It tastes like, like watered down iced tea, but it's tasty. I like it.
I really want to try that.
When I go back, I'll see if I can get you one.
Okay, I will be checking CVS probably tomorrow. Probably as soon as I possibly can.
Yeah, they had the summer flavors, which I wish they came in a smaller. They come in this giant thing. I could never like drink it fast enough before it goes flat, but
yeah, the big bottle.
Yeah, I wish they came in cans, but whatever. I'm just happy to have it.
There should be a variety pack of cans. Polar, are you listening? You should, because we talk about you all the goddamn time and you don't give us any money.
A variety pack of their seasonal flavors I feel like it would sell like hotcakes. That's what I want. I just want to taste each one and decide which one I like and then buy a whole bunch of that one.
Listen up, Polar. You should be paying us as like consultants or some shit. We've got some solid ideas.
We have hawked their seltzer water for so long.
Goddamn. Meanwhile, Repod is the only business which is with the integrity, the decency, the honesty to give us money.
To give us money, yes.
So that's how you should be listening to your podcast today, through the Repod app.
And you are.
Make a little clip of something funny we say, or tag your comment to like a specific moment in the podcast. It's a fun way to chat with us and to listen to podcasts. And also, most importantly, they gave us money.
Most importantly.
Unlike the villains over at Polar, can't be bothered.
Not only do they not have a wide enough distribution, to include Minnesota, but they don't give us money for constantly. Well, it's probably because we're advertising for them for free.
I mean, why bother?
Why would they give us money? We're doing it for free. But
Polar, I will do it even more. You have no idea. You have no idea what I'm capable of until you pay me. Which that should be the tagline of our podcast. You have no idea what I'm capable of until you pay me.
Just clip that little clip on Repod.
Someone needs to like make a song with little
Yes.
samples of us. God,
I
that's
would love
actually
I would love that.
sounds
As long as you
terrifying.
make it not embarrassing.
Oh, yeah,
I feel like a lot of what I say could be taken out of context and strung together to feel like the most embarrassing thing ever.
Yeah. As I was saying that, I was like, Liz, do you really want that to exist?
They could either do it in a way that's hilarious and very flattering, or the exact opposite.
Yeah.
Okay, yes. Our first mystery, is this the unexplained?
God damn, I didn't write it down. I don't know.
Remember. Shoot. This is or it might be a mysterious legend.
I think it's a mysterious legend.
Yeah.
Let's just say it is.
So this is the mystery of Padre Pio.
I'm excited. I'm excited to talk about it.
Padre Pio was born Francesco Forgione. I hope I said that right. In 1887, he was the son of Italian farmers.
God, Samantha, your Italian is terrible. It's like you don't speak Italian.
It's almost like I don't speak Italian.
Yeah,
I feel like I didn't say that as bad as I've said some other words, so I'm gonna give myself that small pat on the back. Yeah. In 1903, he decided to join the priesthood. In 1910, he was ordained at the age of 23. That's so young.
A 23-year-old priest, I would be like, I need to confess to someone else.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Could you get like an adult?
On the morning of September 20th, 1918, he was deep in prayer when he experienced what he described later as, quote, ecstasy, or a profound vision of Jesus that left tangible evidence behind. Now, I don't know. I mean, obviously, if there's no way to know if the reenactment Unsolved Mysteries shows us is accurate, and that Padre Pio saw a vision of Christ that was like unnecessarily sexy.
Okay, but first of all, I love everything about this reenactment. Even before we get to sexy Jesus, he's kneeling in prayer, and there's this light coming through this like very 70s stained glass window that makes it like there's no way this is taking place before the 70s. Where it's just like
1910.
Yeah, just square panels of glass in a single color. I don't know why. I feel like that couldn't have existed when this is taking place, but I just don't. And so you see like the light beaming through that on the floor. It's like very beautiful. He's he's contemplating in prayer, and then boom. Sexy Jesus.
Sexy Jesus. Why are his robes open to reveal this ripped chest?
Okay, I was asking Mac about this because Mac used to be an altar boy and he knows things about the Catholic Church and I really don't know anything. And I was like, why do depictions of Jesus always show him having great abs? Is it because they don't think we'll follow someone that hasn't defined their
as a dad bod?
That has even they didn't bother to like define their ab muscles. They were like, no, it's okay to have like a tiny bit of body fat. No, Jesus has none. You see every time he's hanging out on the cross, chilling, you see every ab muscle there. He's got like an 8-pack, right?
Did Mac have an answer for this?
Well, he said that was not always the way that Jesus had been depicted. And like in older depictions, he's always wearing a robe. And then at some point,
because why does he need to be half naked? Like, this is my question about the reenactment: is it's not necessary for Jesus to have his robe open and to reveal his chest at all, let alone to be completely ripped.
And have a loincloth and his hair like flowing.
The little loincloth. He's not even wearing like a traditional robe. It's like a tiny little short skirt. And then just like ripped abs, which he has nice abs. Show him off, I guess. It just doesn't make sense.
That was Jesus. He was just real vain, strutting around. I mean, I feel like anytime you see Jesus on a crucifix, he is shirtless in a loincloth, looking real like heroin chic.
I guess that makes a little more. I mean, you want to see the side wound, right? So like
Right,
maybe that makes a
right.
little more sense.
And this story does involve the stigmata, so maybe that's why he's shirtless.
Well, his sides aren't covered up though because he's wearing a robe. It's just open. And like
I mean, I'm really grasping at straws. It doesn't actually. Also, this involves like mostly hand and possibly foot, but mostly hand stigmata. So there's no reason why Jesus couldn't be wearing like a sweatshirt from a national park or
even just close up the robe. I don't know. I mean, I feel like maybe they just needed an excuse to show off this man's.
Maybe
physique.
like a Minnesota Vikings jersey. I don't know.
Sure. That's very 1910.
Yeah, but he appears like he's Fabio on a Danielle Steele novel, or like his hair is flowing. He's literally glowing, obviously, because he's Jesus.
Hilarious to be the actor that got this job because his only role was just to like stand there and look, I don't know, have like a divine look on his face, hold his arms out, and then they just kind of like fade away. He was there for 2 seconds.
I always meant to watch this movie. I can't even remember what it's called. It might just be called like Mary, where Christian Bale plays Jesus. And it was like right after he did American Psycho.
Okay.
So he must be so fucking ripped.
I bet he probably wears this Jesus's outfit.
Well, why do you think I've considered watching it? I mean, I never have. I've never actually done it. I should probably just watch it with the sound off. Yeah. Now that I'm talking about it, I go, oh, I know what to do. Yeah. Anyway, he sees ripped Jesus and
sexy Jesus fades away, and after the vision ends, he notices that his hands, and his feet, and his side are bleeding. This phenomenon is called stigmata, as Liz said, and it's believed to correspond with the wounds that Jesus received while on the cross.
Have you ever seen the movie Stigmata?
No.
That's a really stupid question because I don't really think anyone's seen it, but I saw it when it came out and like...
Did it leave you with any insights into the phenomenon known as stigmata?
I mean, I could like tell you where the wounds are, I guess. It's oh my god, what is her name? Now I have to look this up. This movie came out in like 99 or 2000, and it's got the most like 90s music video editing. Like the whole movie looks like that, which is why at the time I was like, wow, this is so cool. Okay, it's Patricia Arquette. Okay. Who is suffering the stigmata in this 1999 movie where Gabriel Byrne, of course, is the priest. I feel like they only have him play priest. Portia de Rossi was in this? Since when? Okay, I'm going to have to rewatch this. But yeah, basically she just like suffers the stigmata, and then, I don't know. You're supposed to learn that like Jesus isn't about the church or something. It does actually have kind of like a religious message.
Interesting.
Weirdly enough.
I definitely couldn't name it, but I've definitely watched like a History Channel show about stigmata, because of course. So traditional depictions of Jesus or traditional depiction of crucifixion shows the nails going through the hands, but that's not actually how they crucify people, because that's not like, this is graphic, but like the weight of your body like would just pull through the flesh of your hand and you would fall off the cross. They would drive the nails through the wrists. So, which is in all likelihood, that's how Jesus would have been crucified, is with the nails through the wrist. So the fact that stigmata always appear on the hands is odd. You would think that it would appear, in the correct place on the body, which
I believe this is addressed in the movie, and she was actually getting wounds in her wrist.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, because she was like, well, that can't be right, because then why is it here? And the priest is like, little do you know that if you were hung up by your hands, you would just fall off.
Right. So, I mean, that's why I think a lot of stigmata is people are, well, not the only reason, but why a lot of people are skeptical of stigmata. But anyway, he was getting it in his hands. So we're told that from the start, some church officials doubted Padre Pio's claims. They suspected that the wounds had been self-inflicted, so they called in doctors to examine him. One of the doctors conducted an experiment. He asked the friars to bandage the wounds and seal them for 8 days, expecting that when the wounds were removed, the wounds would be healed. When the bandages were removed, there was no signs of healing, which suggested that Padre Pio's claims, to them, it suggested that they were legitimate. They show pictures.
Yeah, that's kind of an interesting thing, is that this is a recent enough case that there's photos of this.
Right. Yeah, so there's photos of, and they look, I mean,
gnarly.
festering is like so I didn't realize initially when I was watching this that he had this stigmata for like the rest of his life. So this started when he was in his 20s. Or well, no, he's in his 1918. So like, yeah, maybe his early 30s. And he had these for the rest of his life. And one of the pictures in particular that they showed looked like it was infected or something.
It's very bumpy and gross.
Yeah, what a thing to live with. It sounds incredibly painful.
That's what happens when God likes you.
I guess.
If you're God's favorite, you're gonna have an unsightly wound on your hand.
I mean, in that case, I'd never want to be God's favorite. Of course, I wouldn't be, but
I was gonna say, Samantha, don't worry.
It's not really a concern of mine.
Samantha, you're safe.
I'm safe from the stigmata.
Yeah.
So as word spread about his stigmata and his vision, pilgrims began to come to where they were. I'm not going to try and pronounce this. They were anxious to be blessed by Padre Pio. Due to both positive and negative publicity, the church sent him to an internal exile, which prevented him from appearing in public and completing his priestly duties.
This could not be what Jesus wanted.
Yeah, this part I didn't really understand. But I guess they didn't like the publicity. I mean, honestly, no one told them that even bad publicity is good publicity.
He had some doubters. He had some haters in the church for sure.
Yeah. After 3 years, the exile ended and he was returned to his position. However, he was not allowed to show his stigmata in public. As the years passed, Padre Pio developed a reputation as a man of miracles, and thousands of people came to him seeking divine intervention for their afflictions. And we are told about 2 people. So the first is we hear from Vera Marie Calandra.
What a name.
Calandra. I'm honestly not sure. Vera Marie was born in 1966 and had congenital defects of the kidneys and urinary tract. After 2 years and several operations, the doctors told her parents that she was not going to live. Her bladder had to be removed and she was fitted with a catheter. Her parents were still hopeful for a miracle, however, and her mother sent a telegram to Padre Pio asking for his help. One day, she experienced a sudden fragrance of fresh roses, and she says that she heard his voice telling her to bring Vera Marie to Italy to visit him.
This is how I want to receive all messages from now on.
A sudden fragrance of fresh roses.
Uh-huh.
Sounds lovely. On September 1st, 1968, Vera and her ill daughter arrived at Padre Pio's church. After a brief encounter with him, the 2 returned the next day and were granted a rare private meeting with him in which he blessed Vera Marie, and her mother knew that a miracle had occurred. 2 weeks later, Vera Marie's doctor discovered that part of her bladder remained in her body, and amazingly, she soon recovered. This is like wild to me. I don't even know how this is possible.
I don't like. Did it regenerate? Is she a starfish?
No. Like they only removed part of it, and the other like regrew. I don't even possible.
I didn't even really fully understand why they took it out. Like they took it out and they told the mom they took it out, and the mom was like, "But how is she gonna live without a bladder?" And they went, "Oh, she's not." And I was like, "Wow,
okay,
that is a really harsh way to tell the mom your child is going to die."
Yeah, well, now she's an adult and has no evidence of the illness that nearly killed her as a child.
I feel like this might have just been like really incompetent surgery where they went in to do something and just like didn't do it.
Something else.
I don't know what they took out, but maybe it was not her bladder.
Bizarre. So the next story we hear is about Paul Walsh. In December 1983, Paul, who was then a high school senior, was severely injured in a car accident. His skull was crushed, and almost all of the bones in his face were broken.
Whoa.
At the time,
Also,
doctors
I felt bad for him that they showed his like high school yearbook photo, and it's real bad.
it was.
Not
I
because
I would never want my high school yearbook photos shown on national TV.
Oh my god. I hope boy. But yeah, if they're showing my high school senior photo, I hope you like those chokers that are like a fake tattoo.
Yeah.
That came back a little while ago. And
Yep.
I'm like weirdly like leaning on a mirror in front of a gold curtain. I mean,
Okay.
I didn't pick that. That's just the like setup, but it's like so bizarre. Anyway.
Yeah. So at the time of his accident, doctors gave him almost no chance of survival, and he lapsed into a coma after developing spinal meningitis.
Ugh.
I know. At his bedside, his mother Betty read a prayer by Padre Pio. At the same time, Paul's arms appeared to reach for his forehead, and it appeared as if he was making the sign of the cross.
That's wild.
I know. Betty contacted the National Center for Padre Pio and talked to Harry. Wait, what? Is this the same? Is this person related to Vera Marie? This is Harry Calandra.
Oh, maybe.
I don't understand. That's like a very unique name. Anyway, Harry came to visit Paul. He placed a glove worn by Padre Pio on Paul's head and recited a prayer to Padre Pio. Almost immediately, Paul's body jolted and he briefly awoke from his coma. The next day, Betty returned and found Paul awake and moving, as if he were back to normal. He later described having a vision of Padre Pio that occurred while he was in the hospital. Surprisingly, his roommate claimed to have seen him as well, and today Paul is alive and well and believes that Padre Pio helped save his life.
It is amazing that the other person in a hospital bed saw him too.
Yeah.
That's a really wild story.
Yeah, so that's the story of Padre Pio.
I really like this one. I like the sexy Jesus. I like that these two people are like completely better. I mean, it's a miracle of some degree, right? Like,
yeah,
whether you want to, even if you don't have any religious leanings like myself, it's like a miracle. You would say it's a miracle they survived or whatever.
Right. So I pulled up the Unsolved Mysteries wiki, which first of all lists Padre Pio's occupation as priest/mystic.
I don't know that's fair. I don't know that he would appreciate being called a mystic.
I don't think so at all. Also, I'm not sure if honestly that might be disrespectful. I'm not really sure. But my question was if Padre Pio ever became a saint, and the answer is yes.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
On June 16th, 2002, Pope John Paul II elevated Padre Pio to sainthood.
That's a very there's very few like recent additions to sainthood, or however you phrase that. So that's an interesting one. It's interesting that there's photos of the stigmata, even though it really varies what it looks like by photo, to be honest. Like one of them is super gnarly, and then one sort of looks like he has a circle of ketchup on his hand. So
yeah, the pictures where he was posed looked like someone drew them on with a Sharpie. And then there's another photo that looks like, I mean, his whole hand is covered in blood. And then, yeah, there was one that looks like all crusted over.
It looks like he has the hand of a lizard.
Yes.
So
it looked gross and painful.
I don't know what kind of miracle it is where you start. I don't know what kind of animorphs, miracle.
This is
where
going
you
to be the next saint is going to be an animorph. This is going to be a modern saint.
Saint Animorph.
Yes.
That would be amazing.
What animal would they be morphing into?
Okay, I have Animorphs on the brain. I don't even know why, because I'm not the right age for those. Like, I was too old when those came out.
Oh, I was.
But I'm just fascinated by the covers, I guess. And
well, they're fucking hilarious.
So one of them is a person morphing into a sea star, starfish, whatever.
Was that a real book?
Yeah, yes. So I was like, what the fuck could possibly be happening in the sea star book? And the description of it is so funny. It's like about how the character Rachel, who's apparently in these books, can like morphs into a star and like is regenerating limbs, but then that like leads to there being two Rachels or something. Fascinating. Okay. I really liked that
Oh my
segment.
god. Okay, so I googled Animorphs and the first one that came up was the Sea Star one. I don't know how I've never seen this one. I really was I was never really into these books, but
Apparently they're all about like how these like this someone was explaining this to me. It's about this like group of kids and how they have to like team together to fight aliens, and they have the power to like morph into animals, but I guess they are always morphing into like the same one, so I don't really understand the covers. But
if you have never seen the Sea Star Animorph book, please stop what you're doing and Google it because it is wild.
if anybody wants to make an image of Samantha morphing into a sea star, please do.
No, a shark.
Oh, you want a shark? You're like, no, Liz, shark. I'm morphing into a shark. Okay, all right. I'll morph into the sea star then, or squid.
I
would
see
love
a
to.
coloring sheet in our future of an
That sounds
Animorph.
hard. That sounds hard, but I'll try. Okay. I have a wanted. This has a hilarious reenactment in it, but it's unfortunately a very sad case. So it's one of those where you feel morally conflicted because you're gonna laugh, but it's
You're gonna
also
laugh.
extremely tragic. Like,
Yeah, it's horrible.
could not be more
Fucking
tragic.
horrible.
Yeah. So this takes place in the Angeles National Forest, which is 700,000 acres of preserved land just 30 minutes outside of Los Angeles. So we start with February 29th, 1992. A man named Jeff, we never learn his last name. I don't know if he was like worried about getting murdered or what. We see his face, but he's just called Jeff. Was exploring the campground area when, quote,
Robert Stack calls him an off-road enthusiast.
yeah, I did write that down because I
What
don't
is
even.
that about? He was just like driving a normal car.
Yeah, it's not
He
a like
wasn't hiking. He wasn't like in a
four-wheeler or
Jeep.
something.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I do not understand.
it looks like a crummy Volkswagen Bug, which I feel like is actually going to get stuck in like basically anything.
That's not, that
So
wouldn't be the right choice for an off-road enthusiast.
yeah, anyway, we'll just call him Jeff because I'm not sure what Robert Stack was talking about. Robert Stack says that he was exploring the campground area when, quote, his curiosity led him into a mystery. Okay, so now we get to the reenactment, which is unintentionally hilarious. He makes eye contact with this beautiful woman, and then like a second later, these three funky dudes that are like only a step away from cavemen.
It's like you put clothes on cavemen. Also, I don't know. I'm assuming he described what he saw to the Unsolved Mysteries producers and they produced the reenactment accordingly. This woman is like clearly tied up.
Yeah, like her hands are behind her and she's sitting at kind of an awkward angle. And she's
Obviously tied up.
just
Like
sitting
obviously tied up. And then these like cavemen with jeans on pop out of nowhere.
there. It's a real almost like non-deformed hills have eyes type of thing. Where yeah, they come out, it's like the dudes in the X-Files episode Home, and they're like banging on the car saying, "What you looking at, man? What you looking at?" Blah, blah. And they run his car out of the area, right? Like he leaves because he's so freaked out.
And his explanation is like, "Oh, I just thought, it's kind of weird, but maybe they were just defending their campsite." Like that's a thing you need to do, defend your campsite.
I mean, to be fair, I don't know what you would do with this information. I guess you would go tell a park ranger or something, but
I would think you'd tell someone. I don't know, but maybe not.
he apparently didn't really think that much of it. Maybe he thought they were just on drugs, like, and he didn't want to say that. I don't know, but it basically essentially he got really bad vibes, but he was like, I'm not sure that's a crime. But yeah, but anyway, he feels really bad about it, so I don't know. I feel bad for him too. Let's see what happens here. Yes, they were protecting their campsite. So March 3, go to March 3, 1993, just over a year later, the Los Angeles coroner was called to investigate a possible murder site in the Angeles National Forest. Approximately 50 yards from the spot where Jeff saw this beautiful woman's skeletal remains were discovered. The remains were identified via dental records as missing person 20-year-old Kimberly Pandilos, who had vanished a year before. Kimberly was an immigrant to the U.S. With her family from Cuba at the age of 8. They had lived in Pennsylvania until Kimberly got married at 19 years old. Her husband, and their baby had moved to Northridge, California. Kimberly was a business student and also worked part-time as a model. Jeff, this off-road enthusiast, saw the news coverage regarding the discovered remains and realized from the photo that Kimberly was the girl that he saw at the campsite. He took 2 sheriff's deputies to the spot where he had seen her, but over a year's past, there wasn't any evidence. Back in February of 92, we learned that one day before Jeff saw Kimberly, a burned out car was discovered on the side of the road near the campground section of the Angeles National Forest. The fire was started on the passenger side, front seat of the car. Apparently, this was Kimberly's car. By the time authorities contacted her husband, he had already reported her missing. There were really no clues discovered in or around the car as to what happened. Later, I think pretty soon after that, 2 hikers found a notebook of Kimberly's under a bridge and handed it over to the police, but it didn't have any fingerprints or other helpful clues. They spoke to her son's babysitter, and she said that the day Kimberly went missing, there was a call to the house from someone named Paul around 2 p.m. And he said he had an appointment with Kimberly and that he wanted to confirm it. He later called again around 7, but Kimberly still wasn't home. So the question was, did she go to the Angeles Forest to meet someone? Is that what this appointment was about? They also couldn't find her day planner that would have said what this appointment was with. So they were looking for that. But it wasn't. I think there was a burned notebook in her car, and then there was this other notebook found by hikers, but there was a third one that would have had her schedule, but they couldn't find that one. She had told her husband that she was scheduled to do an outdoor photo shoot. It is believed that she responded to an ad in a local paper only to be abducted by the 3 men Jeff saw. And then there's this very silly reenactment of her getting out of the car, being a total babe, coming up to this person being like, "Hi, I'm Kimberly. Are you so-and-so?" And then him immediately pulling out a gun, and then 2 guys jumping out of bushes and then being like, "Come on, guys, we got her."
These reenactments.
I mean, this reenactment is so silly for what is honestly the most terrifying thing that could happen to you. This poor woman. So then we hear from Jeff, who laments that he didn't know that she was in trouble and he feels really bad about it. And Jeff, this isn't your fault. This was an extremely weird situation, but yeah, also I'm not sure what you thought was happening. Okay, so but there is an update to this. I'm gonna read from Unsolved Mysteries Wiki. It's kind of long. So it has been solved. Photographer Charles Rathburn was considered a suspect in this case after he was arrested for Linda Sobek's murder. Both murders were eerily similar. Both victims were young, attractive, aspiring models and had been lured to a scheduled area for the promises of a photo shoot. They were found just 5 miles of each other within the Angeles National Forest. Also, a witness came forward claiming to have seen Rathburn with Kimberly at Denny's. When you're taking your model meetings at Denny's.
Where else would you meet with models?
However, he was eventually cleared of the case. In 2004, authorities arrested a convicted sex offender named David Raidmaker in Kimberly's murder. Authorities now believe he is the quote Paul who called on the phone that she was supposed to meet the day she disappeared. Authorities found phone records that showed that he called her shortly before she disappeared. At the time, he allegedly ran a prostitution service and a phone sex line. Okay. It's kind of irrelevant. Rainmaker had mentioned Kimberly's murder to his girlfriend. What? Why?
Okay.
Keep her in line, I guess. Multiple times. Interestingly, one time they were watching the broadcast and he stated that the theory presented on it about multiple men abducting Kimberly was wrong. Oh, interesting. On another occasion, he told his girlfriend that he would kill her. Okay, I guess that's why he brought it up. Like the young model that he had raped after she resisted his advances in the forest. Oh, God. And
horrible.
That one time they had gone there, he had checked the area where he had killed Kimberly and found that her remains were still there. Wow. What a catch. Okay. He confessed to his girlfriend that Kimberly had pleaded with him to let her go, saying she wouldn't go to the police. And he stated that he didn't believe her, so he drowned her in a nearby creek.
Oh my gosh.
He also claimed that he had met her through the personals. His girlfriend stated that she was afraid of him. Yeah, no shit. It didn't tell the police about his confession and other statements until 2004. Authorities questioned a Cynthia had done on. God, I'm so sorry. Another of his girlfriends. She stated that he had taken her to Kimberly's car on the night of February 28th, 1992. He said he then set fire to it. He had her phone calls. She had her phone calls recorded in an attempt to get him to confess. Oh, that's cool. He admitted to burning Kimberly's car, but had denied killing her. In the end, the jury didn't believe him. He was convicted of his murder, and he was sentenced to a life in prison without the possibility of parole. Authorities now believe that Jeff was mistaken about his sighting and that the woman he saw was not Kimberly. Really, 50 yards away?
Okay.
In those suspicious circumstances, that was not connected? What the hell's going on in this forest?
I don't know. That's wild.
I'm not sure I believe that.
Neither do I.
But maybe the other two men weren't involved in the murder.
Yeah, maybe not.
Maybe they were involved in the abduction or the sexual assault. You know what I mean? Like maybe they were involved to a degree, but not involved in the actual killing. Oh God. Oh, what a fucking nightmare. And yeah, this poor woman has a fucking like little baby at home and is just gotten married. And I mean, the whole thing sucks. It when I was watching this, they kept talking about like how beautiful she was, which always happens when young women die. And I was kind of like, what fucking difference does that make? But also then it occurs to me, if I'm brutally murdered, I do hope people go on and on about how hot I am.
Oh, yeah, same.
So that made me feel like a little bit
In fact, you're required to tell everybody how hot I was.
It's like, it's so sad Samantha was snuffed out. I mean, she was just a babe. She was just an absolute babe. Like the other night was talking about Cleopatra for some reason. And then I was like, man, that woman was such a fucking babe that we're still talking about it thousands of years later. Like, what a legend.
No kidding.
So, and also, I mean, maybe the fact that she was like so beautiful and was a model and stuff, like maybe that is part of why she was picked. So it's not totally irrelevant.
I mean, it's relevant to Jeff's story, right? Because like he immediately was like, that's the babe I saw in the forest. Like, how many babes are out there in the forest? You know what I mean? Like, clearly this is why I'm certain that he did see her, because who else would it have been?
It's 50 yards away at the same time.
Yeah.
Like, it's at the same time she would have been killed. And it also explains why he would remember. Yeah, like, he seriously, like, is driving his car, there's, like, no one around, and then all of a sudden it's like, ooh, hubba hubba. Like, and he's making, like, probably if people hadn't come out, he would have, like, gotten out of his car and chatted her up, right? Like, right. That's why he remembers.
Yeah.
But yeah, when I mysteriously vanish, be sure to be like, it's just a shame. She was really hot. We'll never see that hotness again. Yeah. Oh, I'm so sorry, Kimberly. It really fucking sucks.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm glad that guy's in prison forever. I mean, honestly, I hope he dies. But
and you know what else sucks? That I have to talk about an investigators segment.
I know.
We're celebrating the coroner. Just what you wanted to do on this beautiful day. Celebrate the coroner.
Robert Stack's like, it's time to talk about the unsung heroes of law enforcement that don't get nearly enough credit. And I'm like, oh my God, Stack, shut up.
The coroner.
Ugh. Do you think if Robert Stack was alive today, he would have the like Punisher, Blue Lives Matter as his phone case?
How dare you?
Okay, that's a no.
No, even if he was sympathetic to law enforcement, which he probably would be, he would never be. He would be caught dead with something so tacky.
You're right. That's too tacky for him. He would have a solid gold phone case. What am I talking about?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Or he would just have. He wouldn't have a phone. You know.
Oh, yeah.
His assistant would take care of that.
Kind of hot.
Yeah.
It's like I'm so rich. I don't even need that.
Right. Exactly.
Wow.
Exactly. So we're talking about two investigators. There are two coroners. which I don't. Do people know the difference between a coroner and a medical examiner, and why coroners are problematic? Probably.
You can remind everyone.
So a coroner is someone who's in the US, this is the coroner system is like a layperson who usually, they may or may not have medical training. I think a lot of times they don't, and they are um elected or appointed to a position, and they can do like uh investigations into deaths. So but they're not, I feel like sometimes people have a mistaken understanding of court, like they conflate the two, a coroner and a medical examiner. Coroners are, it's like a political position. And
It's
they're
super
empowered
weird.
by law to do death investigations, but they may or may not, and oftentimes don't have any medical training whatsoever.
It's very weird.
It's a weird
It
system.
defies common sense. It's like, why would you let just like, can I just go do that? I guess if I get elected,
Yeah.
it's just me stumbling around, basing everything on things I've seen on TV. Like, think about how little sense that makes. Where I've watched a lot of Law and Order. I think I can figure this out. Like, that's essentially what happened.
Yeah, it's wild. So, and a medical examiner, by contrast, is always a physician.
Right.
So they have specialized training to be able to conduct autopsies and death investigations. And I mean, I think the medical examiner system is largely considered the modern system, but we still have lots of coroners in the U.S. And for some reason, Unsolved Mysteries thinks that they're unsung heroes.
Listen, I just love the bitterness in your voice.
Anyway,
you're like, I don't know what the fuck this is, but it's wrong.
I also I don't know. Do I dislike investigator segments more than treasure segments? It's a toss up, but man, I really don't like these segments.
It's a race for last place.
This one, although I will say, this is a little bit also like unexplained death. We're highlighting two cases here. So Robert Stack says when a coroner is called to the scene of an unexplained death, it's his job to identify who the John and Jane Does are and how they died.
It's his job to make wild, speculative guesses.
On the morning of October 5th, 1983, two lifeguards discovered the body of a young boy. He was floating in a channel near the ocean at Seal Beach, California. And according to the lifeguards, the body was so badly decomposed that it made identification impossible. So we meet coroner's investigator Joe Lucky. He was sent to the scene.
Okay, again, that is not a real name.
Joe
Lucky. That's like
it definitely sounds like a name you're given by your motorcycle gang.
It sounds like an Elvis character to me. It sounds
Lucky.
like what Elvis is probably called in Viva Las Vegas. Actually, I'm totally gonna look that up. He always has names like that.
Joe Lucky. Yeah.
Elvis, Viva Las Vegas. Let's see what his character name was. Oh, he was Lucky Jackson.
Okay, that's not far off.
I knew it had Lucky in it. So funny.
So, Joe Lucky found no evidence of foul play. In fact, an autopsy later revealed that the boy had drowned, which I don't think necessarily rules out foul play. But who the boy was and where he came from.
He didn't even know that. He was like, wait, murder can happen by drowning? I had no idea.
Yeah, it definitely can. So the boy, who he was and where he came from, was a baffling mystery. So Joe Lucky says that sometimes it takes a while to get over the fact you can't identify people, and you tend to think about your own families and how there's someone out there who's missing a relative, which is a good sentiment. Joe sent a description of the boy to every law enforcement agency in the area. Only one possible match turned up. It was of a boy who had disappeared from Fullerton, California. Fullerton was 16 miles from where the body was discovered, but Joe still met with the boy's parents. They told him that their son had vanished shortly after leaving for a neighborhood park, and he searched the park for clues. What he found was that there was a flood control channel adjacent to the park, and there was a lot of rainfall the day he disappeared, so that flood control district had opened a local dam and allowed the overflow to come through the channel, making it about 6 feet higher than normal. So what they eventually figured out was that the young boy had tragically fallen into the flood channel and was swept 16 miles to Seal Beach. Blood samples later provided a positive identification, and the mystery had been solved. So yeah, it seems like tragically he probably fell into the the flood channel, which sucks. They should really like fence that off. It's like right by a park. Okay, so the next
I do appreciate that he looked into it even when it kind of seemed impossible.
I will say that I do feel like both of these are examples of decent investigations. So good for them.
But that's how fucking low the bar is, though.
Like, oh, they actually did their job, the job they're supposed to do.
Yeah, you would hope that's what always happens, but it's actually so rare that it has to be highlighted on television and like applauded. It's like, oh my god, they actually figured out who this unidentified corpse was, and you're like, they don't usually. Oh, okay.
If you want to read a book, you have to have a strong stomach for this. I really liked the book, but it is rage inducing. If you want to see an example of why the coroner system is so problematic, The Cadaver King and the Country Dentist.
Oh yeah, you've talked about that.
Yeah, it's a very well done book. It's hard to read. It goes over things like bite mark evidence, for example.
Yeah.
And how a lot anyway, it's a wild story and it's rage inducing, and it really outlines why the systems are broken. Anyway, the next guy we talk about is Cullen Edinburgh. He was a coroner in Orange County at the time.
You want to know the name of his mustache?
What did you name his mustache? I'm looking at it right now.
Super smug.
Super smug. It's a very standard cop mustache.
He just came off as so smug to me.
Yeah. I think he was. I mean, I think, it's probably made his life being profiled as an unsung hero and unsolved mystery.
Oh, of course. I'm sure he never shut up about it.
So he was a coroner in Orange County at the time of the boy's disappearance. And he describes being a coroner as a mixture of a surgeon, a detective, and an attorney.
Yeah, he's really patting himself on the back hard there.
I feel like those are like three jobs. Like, the saying, you're a jack of all trades and a master of none. I don't want a surgeon that's also a detective and an attorney. I want your only job to be surgeon.
Right.
I don't need to use multitasking.
Yeah.
Focus same with like, my attorney's off taking someone's appendix out. I want them focused on my case.
Oh, Samantha, I'm sorry. I can't be in court today for your moving violation. I'm actually taking out someone's kidney and putting in goat testicles. And you're like, no, the
goat testicles. Anyway, he says every day's a challenge.
Yeah, it would be doing 3 jobs at once.
So Cullen Edinburgh has worked on literally thousands of cases. Some take months of painstaking research and legwork. Others are solved solely on the basis of one small piece of evidence. In one case, has haunted him since May 18th, 1987. That morning, the body of a woman in her early 20s was found at the bottom of a steep cliff in Southern California. According to Edinburgh, the woman had apparently fallen to her death sometime during the night. So they weren't sure if it was an accident, if she had been pushed. They went to the top of the cliff and they found a small purse and a half-consumed soda and a map of Southern California.
She didn't even get to finish that soda.
I know. Damn. Hopefully she's in heaven where she can have a cold Coke.
Oh, absolutely.
So strangely, there was nothing else in her purse. The map, though, led Cullen to the last person who saw her alive because there was a phone number written on the map. It was the phone number of a cab company, and the cab company indicated that they had a fare. They picked her up in the area and dropped her off in the area of Dana Point Cliffs. 3 or 4 that morning.
I am not impressed with this cab driver. I realized we see in the reenactment that she tells him, like, how far is it going to take? Or, like, how much money does it cost to get to this point? And he says $20, which at this time I feel like is a lot.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, I only have 18. And he, like, huffs and puffs. And she's like, okay, can you just, like, take me as far as $18 goes? And he's like, I guess. Like, why can you not
get $0?
Why can you not? Also, he just drops her off in the middle of the night on the side of the road in the middle of fucking nowhere. And
4 in the morning.
He's gonna have to go to her destination to possibly pick up another fare. Just take her the rest of the way.
Yeah.
Ugh.
That's really a dick move. So the cab driver said that she had little to say. She was quiet. He didn't notice anything unusual
Yeah, of
about her other
course she
than
didn't
that.
have anything to say. You're a jerk.
Yeah, he's a dick, and it's 4 in the morning. So the next day, the young woman's body was found at the base of the cliff. They describe her, and she had light brown hair, brown eyes, wearing what appeared to be I don't know how they know this, wearing what appeared to be secondhand clothing.
I wrote that down too, and I'm guaranteeing that's gonna be said when my body's found.
She appeared to be wearing secondhand clothing.
This clothing could only be from a thrift store. And they're like, how do you know she didn't just buy that 10 years ago? And they're like, no. No.
Maybe they still had the Goodwill tags on them.
That would be the only explanation. They were like, oh, blue tag day. I see.
Strangely, she was wearing a pair of men's underwear, but I mean, I don't know, maybe
Maybe
she just liked men's underwear.
maybe it's more comfortable.
Yeah. So for Colin Edinburgh, the case of the unidentified Jane Doe has never left him. He says, "This is the first Jane Doe that I've had that I was unable to identify, and I've continued to work this case occasionally. A new lead will come up and I'll follow up, but to this date I have been unsuccessful, and there isn't a week that I don't that doesn't oh, there isn't a week that goes by that I don't think about this lady. I want to identify her and find out who she is and who she belongs to." So there is an update, which is that after remaining a mystery for 26 years, the case has finally been solved. The remains were positively identified thanks to DNA testing as those of Holly Jo Glynn. She was 21 years old when she died, and her death was ruled a suicide.
That's so sad.
I know. It is really sad. So that was that.
Yeah. Okay, we're just gonna move on. Unfortunately, I have one of those family lost someone in a war and is convinced they're alive stories.
I was thinking as I was watching this, like, how many more times we have to do this.
This one is almost slightly more interesting, but it's kind of not. It's kind of the same story over and over again. But anyway, the Christmas of 1943 was hard on the Lazarus family in Baltimore. On December 14th. Okay, also, before I get into this, I hate the way that Unsolved Mysteries presented the story because essentially Robert Stack introduces the segment and then they go through all of it again. And I don't know if that's just fucking padding
I don't know.
or what. But when I took my notes, I had to like consolidate them because I was like, I'm going to just be on the podcast saying the same thing people have already heard. So
Right.
I don't really appreciate that. But anyway, on December 14th, 1943, they learned that their eldest son, Sylvan, was missing in action. It was the height of World War II, and an American B-24 bomber was on a non-combat mission, which I don't even really understand what that means, when it went down over North Africa and the entire crew was lost. The plane had been headed to Casablanca, but crashed into the Atlas Mountains. Among the passengers lost were 3 men, Sylvan Lazarus, Carl Cobb, and Bernard Brady. 3 weeks later, the military reported to his family that he was dead. We hear from his younger brother, Arnold, who was 17 at the time, and the whole family was just crushed. They had really loved Sylvan, and apparently he was a great guy. Sylvan and the other soldiers were reportedly buried in a mass grave. That's what they were told by the military. However, after that, a photograph appeared in the newspaper The Baltimore Mirror, which showed 4 men being interrogated by a German officer. This is what always happens, is that there's some grainy photo that comes out
Yes.
taken after their loved one has supposedly died, and then they're convinced that they're still alive. So we see this photo. It is not a clear photo. It had the contrast of it is very intense. There's like no grays. It's just black and white. So it's kind of hard to see real good. And I get that this looks a lot like Sylvan. Like, sorry, Sylvan, you had pretty big ears. And the person in this photo has pretty big ears. And they said like the posture was the same. And like the expression on his face looked like him and stuff like that. But again, it's not a good photo.
No. And if you really want to believe that your loved one is alive, are you going to see them in a grainy photo maybe?
Yeah.
Someone who kind of looks like them.
I think it's natural for your brain to make that kind of connection.
Yeah.
We're like kind of hardwired to see faces everywhere. Like you make why is 2 dots and a little half circle a smiley face? Like
Right. Right.
That's the way that your brain works. So particularly for this lost love that you want to see again, you're gonna do that. And it did look like him. It's not an unreasonable conclusion, except that someone's probably dead.
Right.
It also didn't really make sense because Nazis had been driven out of the area where the plane crashed 7 months prior. So for the explanation to be like, oh, the plane crashed and somehow he survived and then the Nazis got him, it's like, well, but they weren't there. So like so then like the whole story would have to not be true. The Lazarus family made copies of the photograph and sent it to 13 other families who had lost something in the plane crash. Incredibly, both Carl Cobb and Bernard Brady, who were supposedly dead, were identified in the photo, which this, of course, only bolsters the Lazarus family thinking that that's their son. And they're going through the same thing too, right? Also, their last name was Lazarus. So, of course, they think their son is going to come back from the dead.
I was wondering if you were going to say that.
That's just like built into their disposition.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Sylvan's dad keeps trying to contact the government and the Red Cross, but he doesn't get any answers. Not really. He was first told they were all buried together at the Casablanca European Cemetery. He was later told that they had been dug up and reburied in the Al Anon Cemetery in Algeria, which why? There was not really a reason for that. Brother Arnold suspects that the government doesn't really know what went down. And you know what? That's probably true, Arnold. The Lazarus family concocted this story of what they think happens in order for the photo to be accurate, which would require that the plane was actually shot down during a secret mission in Europe and not North Africa, and that some passengers parachuted out of the plane only to be captured. Arnold worried that Nazis discovered that Sylvan was Jewish and was sent to a concentration camp instead of a POW camp, which, what a fucking nightmare to think that's what happened to your loved one.
I know.
Dear God. So despite the passage of 50 years at the time that the segment was filmed, his family was continuing to search for clues for his fate. Now, this is the part that I found more interesting than some of these other very similar stories. Through the Freedom of Information Act, they obtained an original passenger list from the flight. Suspiciously, the names of the 3 men in the photo were the only names with check marks by their name and were even numbered 1, 2, and 3. Which only led to the family being like, yes, these are the men in the photo and they're still alive.
Okay.
But also, that could be them checking.
Yeah, that could mean literally anything. That doesn't
these 3 families have reported that those are the people in this photo. Like, someone probably looked into it at some point and were like, these 3 names. Okay. Like, it doesn't literally mean they're alive and they're fine.
No.
Update. Okay, so that's the segment. The update is that after the story aired, a viewer called in to report that he was actually one of the rescue workers at the crash site in the Atlas Mountains. And he talked directly to Arnold Lazarus and explained that his brother could not have survived the impact of the crash. There's just not possible for there to be any survivors. And that Arnold now believes that that's not his brother in the photo after all.
Okay.
I hope that brings Arnold some peace. He was very upset that his parents had died without knowing what had happened to their son. That clearly really bothered him. So they did kind of know, actually. And I hope that helps him. I also hope it helps him that his brother didn't get sent to a concentration camp.
Yeah.
Probably died instantly. Like he didn't suffer.
Right.
I suppose if you're a real conspiracy theorist, you'll say that this person that called in was not a rescue worker and it was someone from the military and they were like, stop looking into this, Arnold.
Oh my God.
But you know what? Arnold seemed like a nice guy and I hope this brought him some peace. And
he's not, regardless of what happened to him,
he's dead.
He's dead. And
if
this brings his family some peace, then so be it.
I know.
But yeah, he probably just died because his plane was shot down.
And, that sucks, but yeah, I just take some solace that your loved one killed some Nazis and try to
move on.
Sadly, Arnold has since passed away. Okay, so that's the end.
That's the end of this episode. Should we
rate
it?
Home? I think we have to.
Okay, mysteriousness.
Okay, I would say it was pretty mysterious before we got some of those updates. Like, we would have been like, oh my God, what happened to Kimberly? Also, stigmata.
I guess if we were watching this in real time, they would be mysterious because we wouldn't have some of these updates. But
yeah, now
all of these questions are answered, really.
Yeah. We'll say sideways, I guess.
Okay, sideways. Reenactments.
Okay.
Sexy Jesus.
I fucking love the reenactments. I love the sexy Jesus. I love the cavemen, camper, abduction, murderer, rapist guys. Like, okay, one of them, if there's a shot of this guy like leaning towards the car window to say, like, what you looking at, man? And seriously, they have his long hair like
He
completely
looks like Tarzan.
completely covering his face, almost like Cousin It, and you can just see his mouth moving to be like, what you do. Like, it's so weird. It's like
It's like a fever dream.
I assume David Lynch saw this and it inspired some of his work. Like, it's honestly like truly bizarre. So I have to give it a strong thumbs up.
Yeah, I would agree. Fashion.
Unremarkable, disappointing.
Yeah, I don't know.
A
Fashion's
waste.
not that great. We had was Colin Edinburgh the MVM?
I don't want to give it to him though because I don't like him.
Just by default.
I think there's none.
Fine.
Because I just thought, look, I'm glad that he like bothered to do his job, but I don't know. I just don't like his deal. I didn't like the cut of his jib at all. I was like, I want a different jib.
I'm fine with it. We don't have default MVMs around here. You have to earn it.
Yeah, it's true. It's like when they don't give out a Caldecott that year. They're like, none of you were worthy.
Right. This is just a regular old cop mustache. So
yeah, nothing. There was no great mustaches in this episode.
Yeah. Padre Pio didn't have a mustache, did he? He had like a mustache beard combo.
Yeah, the holy man. I don't know.
Saint Pio. Okay. Anyway, moving on. Robert Stack.
Not enough.
Yeah, I don't know.
He was in a really pretty church when he introduced Your Miracle segment, but which had a ton of like gold leaf on the wall. It looked very dramatic. But
space.
Yeah. Unsolved Mysteries is very pro gold leaf. Yeah, I'm gonna say thumbs down.
I don't know. Oh, so thumbs down. Okay.
I needed more of him. I needed more.
The bar is raised for Stack, so
yeah.
How do you rate this one?
I feel like it's better than average because I love the first two segments.
The first two were good, and then it was like investigators and this lost loved one.
I feel like you should watch it, but maybe quit halfway through. So I'm gonna say 3.5.
Yeah, the first half gets a 3.5. The other half gets a 2.
Whoa. See, I would even maybe say the first half gets a 4, and the other half gets like a 1.
I would say that. That's fair. Sexy Jesus is worth it.
Sexy Jesus, that's a 4 if I ever saw a 4.
Oh man.
He's a 10. He's a 10, but he's actually sexy Jesus. Okay. So we get to the recommendation portion, and I'm glad I go first because I want to talk about Cultish.
Okay.
Which is a book Samantha and I are reading this month for our book club.
I just finished it yesterday.
Oh, perfect. Great. Okay. So it's Cultish, The Language of Fanaticism. It's by Amanda Montell, who wrote a book you may have heard of called Word Slut. I've never read that book. This is the first book by her that I've read. I found this book interesting that it specifically is focusing on the way cults use language to indoctrinate people and manipulate people, and how that language can be used by other groups that aren't as nefarious, like Soul Cycle or MLMs, yeah, stuff like that. And so she had specific examples of different ways language is used to be manipulative. And I thought that was really interesting. I almost would rather the book was like a bit more academic. Like I could have used more talk about like literal rhetoric and like more specific examples of how language is used and I don't know, theory about that or something. A lot of it was just sort of general stuff about cults that you probably, if you're the type of person that listens to this podcast, you might already know about, like Scientology or Jonestown, which are two that she focuses on a lot. But I did think it was pretty interesting. What was your take?
I liked it a lot. I feel like I have similar feelings as you. I wish that it was a little bit deeper. I wish we had dug a little bit deeper. I felt like she repeats sort of the same arguments over and over, which is fine. I liked that she talked about some things like I particularly liked I mean, obviously you're talking about cults, you're gonna talk about the big ones. You're gonna talk about Waco, you're gonna talk about Jonestown, Heaven's Gate,
Oh yeah.
Scientology. She talked about the MLMs, which I always find interesting, but she also like there was a section about like corporate speak, which
Mm.
I found like took me aback because I was like, she lists off a bunch of like corporate jargon, you know, like circle back and like those kinds of things, and how it's like kind of culty language. And there was a lot that I was like, wow, yeah. In my job, I hear that all the time. I say that all the time. Like it was kind of wild to think about it in that context, and talking about how like yeah, it's used to like create solidarity and to manipulate you in these ways. And like I don't know, I found that really interesting, and kind of like the talk about like capitalism and how these things work to like whatever. So I, even though it's obviously there's a and she makes this distinction between like that sort of cultish language and the language that's used by like Jim Jones, but still it's, I mean, like anything, a spectrum. So I found it fascinating. I found it to be an interesting take on cults that I hadn't heard of. I appreciated that. I mean, obviously at this point we've read a lot of books about cults, so
Yeah,
this
obviously.
was a new take. Well,
Who
yes,
hasn't?
who hasn't? But this is a new take on cults that I hadn't considered, and I found very interesting. But I do wish that it was a little bit, I wish it was longer. I wish we had
Absolutely.
spent
Yes.
more. It didn't need to be as short. I feel like we really could have dove a little bit deeper into these concepts. I feel like it's kind of scratched the surface, and she would say the same things like this. What was the phrase she repeated all over and over again? The thought terminating cliche,
Oh yeah.
where it's
Mhm.
like a cliche that people say that basically like stops the argument in its tracks, because like you there's no way you can argue against it. So she points out those all the time, and it was like, okay, I get it, that's another example, but like tell me more was kind of what I had hoped. But I really liked
Yeah.
it. I think I gave it like a 4 on Goodreads. I would highly recommend it. She has a podcast, doesn't she?
Yes, and I haven't checked that out because I feel the same way. I think this could have gone deeper. I listened to the audiobook, which was only 8 hours, which is pretty short for an audiobook. And in a way it's like, "Oh, great. Like this is very approachable. This is very like easy." But I was interested in it. So I was like, wow, I kind of wish this went deeper. I almost kind of wish there was one book specifically on the nefarious uses, which would be the
Yeah,
like cult uses or people trying to get you to harm yourself, versus the things that are just like corporate speak or whatever that have some of the same techniques but aren't necessarily like evil.
for sure.
They're
You know what I want a dedicated book on is the fitness cults. She
yeah.
talks about CrossFit. So you mentioned Soul Cycle. She talked about Peloton, core yoga. Like she touched on all of these without going into like extreme detail in any one of them. And I was like, I was fascinated about that because there was a few examples that she used that I didn't realize were so culty. But you get like that vibe, right? I feel like she mentioned something that I love, which was the idea of someone who has a low cringe threshold, which I feel like is me. I have a very low cringe threshold. So like I'll hear these things sometimes and
No,
I'll recognize that I don't like it, but I can't put my finger on it. I feel like this book has helped me sort of articulate why, because it is like this culty language, and a lot of these fitness places have that. And that
yeah.
whole idea I found fascinating, and I would love to read a whole book just about that.
That absolutely should have been a separate book, I think. I think there's enough um and it's two almost like very separate uses of this type of language that I feel like it could have been two separate books and they
Mhm.
both ideas could have been expanded on. Like it's super interesting, but then I was like, but that's it? Like I need more.
Well, there's just so much more there. I mean, she talks about like the idea that young people largely are turning away from religion, but then this like these other things become spiritual, like Soul Cycle or whatever. A lot of times it's these fitness movements that people get swept up in, and it becomes like the spiritual thing for people. And I just feel like you could go so much deeper into those concepts, and I kind of wanted to hear that and
Yeah.
explore that.
Yeah, I agree. I would recommend checking it out, and maybe that's like a starting point for, other things to look into that you're interested in, but it's not a 5, it's a 4-star for sure.
Yeah. Do
That
recommend though.
mhm. Did you have one or do you want to just say that too.
I was gonna recommend the recipe I told you about last night.
Oh yeah, do that.
I ate it again for lunch, and I have nothing else to recommend. Yeah, I made this salad dressing recipe last night. This sounds so silly spoken out loud, but it was so good. So I follow this guy mostly for gardening advice on Instagram. His name is Caleb Wise, Wyse, and his like company, he has a blog called Wise Guide, so Wyse Guide, kind of a play on his name. And he posts I've actually made a couple of his recipes before. He has like a pesto recipe that's really good. I've made a couple times. And a couple of weeks ago, he posted a recipe for blueberry vinaigrette, blueberry basil vinaigrette dressing. And I made it last night for dinner, and it was so good. It was delicious.
Truly delicious.
It was amazing. And I got to use some stuff from the garden, some basil. You gave me some shallots last year that I've been trying to figure out how to cook with, because I don't normally cook with shallots, and this calls for a tiny bit of shallots. I feel like you could use onion if you don't have shallots. But it's blueberry, basil, olive oil, balsamic vinegar, and you just blend it all up. A couple other things, you blend it all up, and then I made this salad that he also posted about. Like a couple days later, he posted a salad, which is essentially just like arugula, peaches. I put feta cheese on mine. Today for lunch, I made some chicken. I put some chicken on it, and I smothered it in this dressing, and it was fantastic. So I highly recommend, if you're looking for a salad recipe because it's summer and you've got some fresh ingredients, check it out. You can find him on Instagram. If you don't have Instagram, he does have a blog. So just like Google Wise Guide and you can find his blog where he posts all his recipes. He has some, I haven't made a lot of his recipes, but they all look super good. There's a cookie recipe he has that I really like, a chocolate chip cookie recipe that looks amazing. Yeah, highly recommend. Eat some salad, get some green in your diet.
Does anybody remember in the early 2000s how literally every restaurant had this salad that was spinach, berries, goat cheese, and then like raspberry vinaigrette? Yes. Like literally every restaurant had this.
I just remember putting raspberry vinaigrette on everything.
Well, I would order that salad like essentially every place I fucking went for years, and I goddamn miss it. If the 2000s are back, bring back the berry goat cheese spinach salad. That's when they're really back. I'm not impressed with the youth wearing low-rise jeans, whatever.
Bring back the raspberry vinaigrette. I feel like you could make the same recipe with raspberries.
It would probably be
delicious.
That sounds great.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna make some more and have it for lunch. Maybe I'll just eat this the rest of the summer.
Samantha's already like looking at her blender. She's not really recording anymore.
Well, I told you about it because I know you went berry picking and you had blueberries.
I've got a bunch of berries I got to do something with because they are going to. You know how berries last about
like 2 days,
12 hours.
They hardly last at all. I freeze mine and put them in smoothies.
Yeah, I should probably do that. Okay. I think that wraps it up for today. Everybody should really join our Patreon because it's only $1 to get like more than 50 episodes at this point.
Well over 50 episodes at this point. Yeah.
You'll feel like a fool that you didn't do it sooner. And this month we're going to be talking about the pilot episode of The Practice, which is a legal drama that was on ABC starting in 1997. It's what I've been watching like this year. And it's a real time capsule. If you want to move.
And if you're listening to this, we probably haven't released that episode yet because we're always real late. So you'll get it hot off the presses.
Yeah. If you want to hear now. If you want to hear our deep insights into The Practice and what the 90s were like, you'll want to tune into that. Also, for our super duper mystery solvers, our top level patrons are getting a pretty amazing gift this month.
Amazing. You're gonna
I don't want to spoil it, but maybe in a little bit after people have started to get them, I'll post a pic, and then you're definitely going to want to join to get one because, oh my God.
Do you think people would sign up if they knew what they were getting?
Probably.
Like, should we spoil it?
Okay.
To get some signups?
Okay. I am gonna spoil it. You make a great point. People are gonna want to sign up.
Our business meeting we're having live on air.
People are gonna People are gonna want this. So you may have recalled that a little while ago, I had artist, friend of the pod, Brian Duffy, draw a coloring sheet for us of a Mothman romance novel with Samantha
featuring me
on the cover. And what I realized was like, oh, this would be such a good cover for a Mothman romance. Why don't we get this? First of all, why don't we have him color it, like, professionally, so it looks good? And then why don't we put that on notebooks so that you can write your own Mothman romance?
Yes.
And they just came in the mail yesterday, and they look so fucking good. The notebooks have 50 pages because I assume you have a lot of smut to write. And it literally says write your own Mothman romance on the front, and then but it also says the title. You don't get to pick the title. The title is Drawn to the Flame.
Yes.
So
and you get it's you novel.
Perhaps it's you novel with sexy Samantha, who we all know is such a babe, and that's how she'll be remembered. Flirting off-shoulder dress with Mothman and by a candelabra. Like, how can you not
incredible.
Get this notebook? So if you haven't signed up before, you'll have to sign up now. It's $10 a month, and then after 3 months, you'll get your gift. So keep that in mind. You should be listening to this on Repod, as we have her covered, because they're the best.
Yes.
We're on social media. If you want to see me occasionally fight with people, you're going to need to be over on Twitter. Where occasionally, like, some MAGA jerk discovers our podcast and is shocked. What else? I don't know. This podcast is great. We have t-shirts, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Oh, send us your ghost stories. Your we have like none right now. We need paranormal tales, or like maybe you solved a mystery, or maybe I don't know. Maybe you made out with Mothman. Keep it safe for work, but send it to perhapsitsyou.podcast@gmail.com. And we'll be back in a couple weeks.
Yeah.
Right? Samantha's like honestly thinking of quitting. She's like, yeah, in a couple weeks. Yeah.
Yeah. Let me look at my calendar. I was trying to think if we got everything, but I think we did.
Okay. Thanks, everybody. Keep barking.
Bye.
Bye.